Hello Simon, so we're both at DevWeek in the Barbican in London, and you're running a workshop today, and your workshop is on what?
It's an introduction to software architecture, which can potentially sound quite dull, but what we want to do is we want to give developers more of an architectural awareness.
Okay. So most of your audience are developers?
Yes, it's aimed squarely at developers. And what I've found is lots of people do development and then they get promoted into roles where they have to do more architectural type stuff, but they're not necessarily given the responsibility or the authority to make those big decisions. So what we aim to do is we aim to explore what architecture is all about. I mean, that's a whole session in itself. And rather than telling people what architecture is about, we get them into groups and we let them kind of battle it out.
So it's exercise-based day.
Exactly. So we run them through software architecture and what architecture is about, and then we move on to the role of a software architect. So the person who looks after the architecture and all that sort of stuff. And then we move on to look at things like, well, what influences and impacts the architecture? So the constraints, you can only use the .NET platform or the Java platform, or we only have these things that you can talk to grab reference data, for example. And then throw into the mix the functional requirements and how they can sometimes not obviously affect the non-functional requirements in the architecture. And then the big one, the non-functional requirements.
Yes, indeed.
Which when you get stakeholders giving you requirements, of course, they like to tell you what the system should do. They give you a nice big wish list. They don't tend to tell you it should be fast or scale, or they don't tell you what their business growth profiles are looking like.
So what's your advice when faced with a developer who is being asked to behave more like a software architect? How can he get to the point where he's a competent software architect?
Lots of experience. I don't think there's a shortcut to becoming a competent software architect overnight, unfortunately. I'm quite fortunate because my background's in software consulting, much like yourself. You get to see lots of different customers and the way that they do things, and therefore
good things and bad things.
Good things and bad things. So that helps, and that's really the point of this course. What we try, or point of this workshop, sorry. What we're trying to do is we give them a sample, one-page kind of stakeholder wish list of functional requirements. The system must do these things, and then we get them to think about the non-functional aspects. So what sort of things could affect their architecture, and then later on this afternoon, when we finish the workshop off, we're going to get them to actually come up with a design and architecture for that particular system. And already we've come to the conclusion that if you're building a small, simple system, then not only are you going to be able to build that system quicker, but it's going to impact your architecture less and less. Versus something that's highly scalable, it's going to be much more complex to design. But the key is you have to understand what those constraints and the drivers are, and really that's the point of the session today.
Okay, sounds very good. Now, one interesting question that comes up a lot is, can you be a good software architect if you no longer code? Do you code?
I do code.
You do code.
Currently coding at the moment, C#, ASP.NET, and Windows Communication Foundation. I strongly believe that software architects should code, and I try and get people to think about becoming a hands-on software architect. So what I mean by that is someone who's got a balance between software development activities, so they still do some of the hands-on stuff, and a good balance of the software architecture role. So in other words, making sure they do keep that holistic view, that bigger picture in mind when coming up with their designs and stuff.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to find out a bit more, do you run a course? Do you run a regular workshops? Do you do anything beyond DevWeek?
Yes, so this workshop's a condensed version of a training course that we run through Skills Matter, and it's the same content, but the exercises are much more in depth.
Right. Okay.
We also run a website called Coding the Architecture, which is codingthearchitecture.com, and we write about lots of this type of stuff. So our experiences with software architecture, things we've seen go wrong in the field, and that sort of stuff. So it's all about trying to promote the view that a hands-on software architect is a good thing to have on a software project.
And you also have a blog?
Yes, I also have a blog.
And the URL for the blog would be?
The URL is simonbrown.je/blog.
Nice and easy one. Thank you very much for that, Simon.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the day.